You are listening to Zen and the Art of Triathlon.
Well, hey there, all you ZenTri freaks and geeks, and welcome to another episode of Zen and the Art of Triathlon, the podcast where we go long on endurance. So I'm out in the backyard by the pool because it's actually really pretty outside. It's kind of hot, but Emily's out on a run and Kai is out on a bike ride. And this episode is going to be a lot of fun because we have an interview about electrolytes, sodium, all that good stuff, and also a really good running tip. Maybe you could use it on the bike too, about hydration, and a couple of things that I've actually learned about fueling and, well, mostly hydration, and things that I didn't know or apply differently, and it's really cool. So I'm going to share those with you, and then also a couple of Zen thoughts that I'll put right up front so that you can go ahead and start applying them as you need. But first, let's talk about this interview. We have Jonathan Toker, and he's the founder of SaltStick. And SaltStick is a sponsor of ZenTri, and it's getting to be summer, and we're out there in the heat, and hydration is really, really important the hotter it gets. And hydration doesn't work unless it has electrolytes in it. And we thought it would be great to get him on the show to let you know about what's out there, how to use your electrolytes, and have a much better racing and training, really, success story in your life. And I learned two things during the interview that I'll go ahead and share with you now, so you can listen for them in the conversation. And one is that the electrolytes, sometimes electrolytes can upset your stomach. And I've noticed that if you pound a whole lot of salt along with your water, like too much, then your stomach can actually start getting upset. It revolts against it. It hurts. Makes you feel sick if you get too much salt. And Mr. Toker explained that that's why one of the products that they have actually dissolves in your mouth. So just like with fueling, that sugar, that there's different types of carbohydrates and there's different channels in your body to absorb them. So you have fructose, sucrose. Well, sucrose is, let's not get into all that. But dextrose and galactose. I mean, it just goes on. All the oses go on and on and on. Maltodextrin. And there's different channels, uptake systems in your body. So you can actually increase the amount of carbohydrates you take in by having a variety of them. That way you don't overflow just one uptake system. And with electrolytes, specifically sodium, you can chew on it, and if it's in your mouth, actually your mouth can absorb it before it ever can start absorbing it before it ever hits your stomach. And that's one way to get it in so that your stomach doesn't ever hurt from electrolytes. I thought that was really cool. And then another one is that when you have sloshy stomach, that's actually a sign that your water doesn't have enough electrolytes in it. Your body is rejecting the water because it doesn't want it doesn't want to dilute itself its blood any further. I hope y'all can hear that bird. It's really nice. That might be a mockingbird. If it starts doing a variety of calls, yeah, I think that's a mockingbird. Yeah, it imitates. It's kind of like a parrot. It imitates anywhere between like 9 and 12 or something like that, other bird calls. It's a really beautiful bird to have around. Great bird. It's the state bird of Texas, actually. And these these, what they call water babies. It's like what it feels like that you're pregnant with something sloshing around in your stomach. It happens to me getting off the bike and then running and having all this water just sloshing around, and I can feel I'm getting dehydrated, and I've taken in water, and water's sitting in my stomach, but it just won't pass my stomach, and I've always wondered about that. Like, what do you do? And it's really frustrating. And lo and behold, you take more electrolytes with it, and it should absorb, because now your body's going, okay, I can take in this water. It's not too low in electrolytes, and it's not going to dilute the electrolytes that I'm already missing any further. That's pretty cool, huh? All right, so that and a whole lot more will be in the interview. And before we even get into that, I want to talk about something I discovered running. For years, I've talked about a tip where you can improve your running during races by running with a bike water bottle. It doesn't need to be a big one, just one of the medium-sized ones, in your hand. And then when when you go through aid stations, this is in hot races, you don't just put water in that water bottle, you put ice in that water bottle, ice water. And it doesn't take much. You don't have to fill the thing all the way to the top every time. But then as you run, you dribble that ice water over your head. And it really works if you're wearing a visor. And then you sip on it as well. And this strategy has led me to a 440 Ironman at Galveston, where it's really hot on the run. And then also I got top 10 at Austin, half Ironman, with the same strategy. And a 440 at Galveston did not get me anywhere near top 10, but I did get top 10 at Austin with like a 5:05 or 5:15, so a lot slower. And that just shows you how hot and how hard the Austin course was. And comparatively to other people, you always got to think relatively because courses are different. Other people started to fade and melt, and I kept cruising along, and because I was pouring ice water and sipping on ice water the entire run. And this is an incredible strategy that I've been teaching people for years. And you just got to learn to run with a water bottle in one hand that's filled with ice, and you just stop at the aid stations and put more ice in it. And it actually keeps your hands cold too, which is a good way to shed heat as well. And what's going on when you do this is keeping your body cool is probably the biggest factor in a longer half Ironman up to Ironman, especially in the heat, definitely in the heat. And as soon as you start to overheat, your pace slows down, you get sick to your stomach, you can't take on fuel, like all this bad stuff starts happening. So if you can cool down, it's huge. And taking on ice cold water internally works even better than putting it on the outside of your body. Because if you pour it on the outside of the body, sometimes your skin will react and shut down the heat shedding that it's doing if it's too cold. So doing it from the inside with drinking ice water is very much the optimal way to do it. Putting ice water on the outside does work, but to a point. And it's really, really hot in Texas right now. I went running at lunch the other day, and this is what got me going on this. I went running at lunch the other day, and we have a heat index of like 110, 120 degrees because it's so humid and hot. And it's unbelievable, actually, of how oppressive that heat is. It's the same heat, if you include the heat index, the humidity, as Death Valley sometimes. And I went out for this run in the middle of the day because all I had was a lunch run. That's all I could do. And the thing I did before I walked out is I grabbed a Camelback bottle. that's insulated, one of these insulated bottles, and it wasn't a big one. It's 20 ounces, which is sort of big, but not really. There's bigger. And I filled it to the top with ice first, and then I poured cold water in to fill it the rest of the way. And I had a revelation running that it's one of those things where I'm like, man, this changes everything. Because right now, in the heat, I have to really be careful about when I run. And one run for an hour can ruin you for 2-3 days if you don't do it right, if you don't hydrate and stay cool. And I noticed while I was running that, one, the water bottle stayed ice cold up until about 57 minutes in. And that was impressive. One, that's really, really impressive. And two, I never felt hot because I was taking this ice water. I was sipping on it every 5 minutes. And I made sure I finished it, by the hour. And the other thing is I noticed that when I had about 3 minutes left, I ran out of ice water. It was the few drops that were left were no longer cold. The ice was gone, so it was just regular temperature water and not much of it. And within like a minute or two, I instantly went into like, oh crap, this is hot. Like it was pure suffering. It was so hot in the sun and all that. So my point is that it was making a huge difference. And so I've done 3 runs total lately, running with a water bottle in my hand full of ice. And another trick is I've learned that when you're done, fill the water bottle up halfway with ice again, or halfway up with water, doesn't really matter, and then throw it in your freezer. And then by your next run, it's half full of ice. You fill the rest up with water, and then now you have a water bottle half full of ice whenever you go out on your next run. And it's just so smart. I'm a little angry at myself I haven't figured this out earlier, because I've been talking about running with ice for years during races, and now I'm just getting smart enough to go, oh yeah, I should totally do that in training. So I don't post shows unless I actually have something to talk about. I've gotten over that years ago, where I don't do shows on a schedule. I don't do shows every week because I don't want to talk about nothing. I'm a triathlete. I don't have all the time in the world to talk about nothing. But when I do have something really important to share, I like to have like 2 or 3. And then once I have like some really important stuff to share that'll really change how you do things and improve your life, then I'm like, man, I got to get this on a show. And this is one of them. There's many of you out there that are like, I can't run with a water bottle in my hand. That sucks. There's 2 things about that. One, you can, and we're getting to that in a minute. There's actually 3 things. The second is if you fall down, if you trip while you're trail running, people say having a water bottle in your hand is awesome because it cushions the blow and protects your hands. And I've known that for years. That's actually kind of cool. That's just a little side benefit. It doesn't really matter. Another thing is if you do it in training, then doing it on a race day is super, super easy. It becomes nothing to do. And then when one arm gets tired, you just switch it to the other arm. And then you notice that it's actually pretty easy. The Camelback insulated bottles have a pinch point towards the top, which makes it actually really easy to run with in your hand. Like really easy. And then you can buy these aftermarket little hand grips that you can add to a water bottle. I do got to say, in this heat, an insulated water bottle is required. Maybe not where you live. Maybe you can get away with a regular water bottle, but where I'm at, an insulated water bottle is required. And with these past 3 runs, I've just noticed I finished the run. I'm happy. I'm nowhere near as decimated as I was before, and it's actually really cool. And there was something else about it. I can't remember what it was, but I'll probably remember in a second. But while I'm, I know what it is. The other thing is you are way more likely to drink your water that you need on a warm day if it's in your hand. If it's somewhere else or out of the way, you'll forget about it. You won't think about it. When it's in your hand, it's incredible. You can put 2 people and have one carry their water bottle in their hand, and then another one have their water bottle, their water like somewhere hidden, or not on them, like at a stop, they're going to pick it up or something like that and then glug. The person that is carrying the water in their hand, they think about it more often because it's in their hand, and then they drink more often, which in warm weather is critical. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Zen stuff, and that'll be the last thing before our interview. I was listening to a podcast, and the guy said something really powerful. I'm not sure which minute it was in it. It was about halfway through. But it was the Yokoji Zen Dharma Talks. And this is a British guy. He's older. But I love this guy because he's very forceful when he talks. So he's very serious. But he came from a background when he was a youth of being a fighter, like a street fighter, like a real one, and getting in a lot of fights. And Zen calmed him down and turned his life around. He was kind of a hooligan, I think. And he tells stories about that every once in a while, which is a good story about what Zen can do for you. But he said something. One of the reasons that I listen to this Zen stuff, other Zen podcasts, while I'm working out, is because of this exactly. He said, the word can't shouldn't exist until you've tried. And as soon as I heard that, I rewound it, listened to it again, and I'm like, man, that could be a motto for Ironman or ultra running or anything. And it's something, having a 13-year-old around, that's something that I immediately put in my toolbox to say, and also at work. I can just imagine saying it all the time when somebody says, I can't do that. We have this other thing where somebody says in our house or at my job, I'm a supervisor over some people, if fault. I say fault is the F word. I don't want to hear it. Fault makes you look ugly whenever you say it. When you say, well, that was his fault, right? It makes you look petty, and you look like you're trying to skirt around your own responsibilities and stuff. I don't care whose fault it is, just fix it, right? Fault is not job one. Ford, quality is job one. But anyway, when I heard this other one, can't shouldn't exist until you've tried. I was like, oh my gosh, I can use that all the time. I'm not surrounded by a lot of can't people, but it does come up. I can't go ride my bike. It has, I don't like the way it shifts or something. Oh, here comes the dogs. Here comes Kai. He just came in from his bike ride. How far did you go? You don't know? Why not? Why didn't you track it? Why don't you have a watch band?
Because it broke.
Why did it break?
Because I had it too much.
Why haven't you fixed it?
Because I need to order one.
When are you going to order one?
Now.
Okay.
That would be okay.
Yeah, go for it. I'm recording a podcast.
What would I order it off of?
Amazon. Go pick one out. Hey, I'm talking, so unless you want to be on the show,
No.
they can't see you wave, dude. How was your ride? You have no idea how many miles you rode? Did the ice water on the bike ride help?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you feel better?
Mm-hmm.
How's your ankle?
Hurts.
It hurts?
Yeah.
Still don't think you can run on it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we're going to go swim this afternoon.
Yeah.
I'll take you. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right, boss. Good job. She's out on a run. You try to chase her down on your bike and scare her. Kai and I both like to sneak up behind Emily when she's running and scare her. I know it's horrible, but it's funny. She gets upset, but then laughs about it. And keeps her on her toes. Anyway, the can't shouldn't exist until you've tried is just fantastic. We got all these people that say they can't do something. I can't do an Ironman. I can't run a marathon. I can't. Well, have you ever tried? No. Right? That's the next question. Because a lot of times you actually can't do something. If you're not an American citizen, you can't run for president. Even if you try, it's still not. It's not going to get you anywhere. But if it's something that is technically possible, feasibly possible, then saying you can't is a negative language that really wears on you. And so I don't want to recommend it without telling you where you can go hear more of this. Yokoji Zen Dharma Talks is the name of the podcast. You know, that reminds me. I don't know if I got internet way out here. I'm a little bit too far from the router. Let's see if I can get Instagram, because somebody asked me something the other day. Oh, look at that. I can. So somebody asked me what my favorite podcasts were that are about productivity. And so I made my list and I posted it on Twitter. So you can go to Zen Triathlon on Twitter and find the same list. If my Texas accent doesn't help you understand. But Beyond the To-Do List, Akimbo, Akimbo, Distraction, Getting Things Done, Habits into Health, Happier, Hurry Slowly, Optimal Living Daily, Productivity Paradox, Productivity Straight Talk, Technology for Mindfulness, 5 a.m. Miracle, I get up at 4:30, The Productivity Show, and Productivityist. That's right, Productivityist, all one word. Those are some podcasts that you can go check out. All right, so now let's get into some real Zen. The thing I had, let me go back to my notes here. I'll give you some bonus Zen. You can tell somebody's wise, and Zen is just, paying attention so that you can be wise. Eventually. Somebody's wise if their answer to something is, it depends. That's your bonus. Somebody that has an outright answer, unless it's very, very, very specific, is not very experienced. And you should question whether or not that's the right answer. Like if I said, somebody says, well, how should I train to train for a marathon? Say, well, it depends. Right? Have you run one before? Is the race that you're going to do hot? Is it cold? Is it hilly? Is it flat? Is it a mix? Are you overweight? Are you in shape? Do you have an eating disorder? Are you already too busy? Right? And so there's a whole lot of it depends in there. So whenever you see somebody answer a question with it depends, pay attention to that person. That person knows what they're talking about. They may not know everything, but that's a good place to start. Okay. Then there's something in Zen called the Gateless Gate. It's famous. And it's a little hard to wrap your mind around. So I came up with a way to actually do that a little bit better. The Gateless Gate, Zen is full of paradoxes. And they're just supposed to show you that it depends. That one answer works until it doesn't. And then the other answer, the opposite, works until it doesn't. And then sometimes neither of them work, and then sometimes both of them work. And it's supposed to reveal to you that kind of it goes along with the whole depends thing, that there is no one answer. You never have it all figured out, and actually that's okay. So the sooner you can get there, the better off you'll be. And this happens all the time with training. I figured out just the perfect amount of training, or the amount of intervals, the amount of time of intervals that actually works best. Well, that works until it doesn't. So it depends. You have to pay attention to what's going on and then do the right thing according to what's going on. And that's where Buddhism comes in with enlightenment is appropriate response. And that means that your response can vary based on the situation. But the Gateless Gate, so I don't know. This house has a gate on the side of the side of the house with the fence. So let's talk about that gate. Now, there's a gate. People say, well, that's a gate. Well, how do you make it gateless? How do you arrive at something that isn't there? It's real confusing. It doesn't even make sense a lot of times. And in modern language, it's kind of it's kind of a stumbling block. So I thought of something that was actually better for a lot of us. Not for everybody all the time, right? But instead of that, think of attaining non-attainment. And that's the stages you go through where you want something really bad and then you finally get it And then you realize you didn't really want it that much anymore. So you want to get to the point of where you don't want. Let's use wanting instead of attainment. But a lot of people want to attain enlightenment, for example. They want enlightenment. Well, enlightenment is not wanting anything anymore. Then you're happy when you don't want anything anymore. So you have to train yourself to not want anything anymore. But the paradox is to get to that place, you have to want to be there in the first place. So how do you want to not want anymore? And basically, you train on little things. And you train by paying attention and seeing, oh, I wanted that thing so bad. And now if I pause and wait a little bit, I don't want it anymore. And at first you kind of have to force it on yourself and then be a little bit retrospective. A really good example is like a fancy new car. A new car is awesome until the shine wears off, and now you got to pay for it for years. And you're like, oh, did I really want that much anymore? So yeah, that's really what the Gateless Gate is about. It's about achieving a state of not just happiness, but it pacifies your inner demons, I guess, a little bit, and allows you to enjoy life as it is a little bit more, because you're not wanting other stuff than what you have so much, because you realize that wanting is a little bit of the misery and suffering that we cause ourselves. And so I like to think of it that way, where one version of enlightenment is getting to the point where you don't want to want anymore. We see that with people, like, say they get really good at doing a specific distance of triathlon, and then they get over it. They've finally found who they are, and now they don't feel the need to do that anymore. You can want to move up in your company a lot until you push yourself too hard, and then it ends up backfiring on you a little bit, and then you go, things were kind of good where they were. Or with running is a really good one, because it's so easy to get injured running. You can up your running volume. You want to be a 100-mile-a-week runner. I've done that. And then you end up damaging your Achilles tendons, for example. And then for a little while, you're in regret, and like, why did I do that? And suffering with that. And then a little while later, you're like, maybe that was a little bit ridiculous, and I really don't want that anymore. But you kind of have to, the whole point is that you kind of have to go through the wanting first to get to the point of where you don't want anymore. There's Kona, the black lab, drinking out of the pool. That's gross, dude. He loves to swim. He keeps dropping the tennis ball in the pool and then looking at me like, can I go in after it? I'm like, dude, it did not start out in there. You threw it in there. And Emily gets mad when he gets in the pool all the time. It's like for special occasions, because labs stay wet for like 8 hours. And then he wants to go inside and get wet all over the house. The one dog that does dry off instantly, Zoe over here, you can hear her come by. That was Zoe. That's her collar. She dries off instantly, but she does not ever want to get in, which is, that's the paradox, right? The one dog that wants to get in all the time, we don't want him to get in all the time. We do let him because he's a lab, man. It's awesome. He loves it. It's good for him. And then the dog that we do want to get in more often and enjoy it will not get in. Which actually, it makes me think about that painting in Goodfellas. You can Google it, Goodfellas painting, and it's got 2 dogs on it. It's a really great scene from Goodfellas, and it's very zen. One dog looks left, one dog looks right. What do you want from me? It's so good. It's such a moment of zen in that movie. It has nothing to do with anything, yet one dog looks east, one dog looks west, which is a callback to so much Zen stuff. There's so much in Zen about what is the meaning of Buddha or Bodhidharma coming from the West. That's a huge one in Zen. You ought to Google that one. That's a really good one. It's got so much meaning to it and got so many answers and non-answers. But anyway, so I'm going on and on here about Zen stuff. You can tell it's a lot of fun to dive into that rabbit hole. But anyway, think about that. Get to the point of where you don't want anymore, and you've made some progress. Just be and just do. But first, you got to go through the wanting, and that's okay. Just observe and pay attention. Okay, so that's all that. Let's go ahead and get started with our interview with Mr. Jonathan Toker. I'm very excited to have him on the show. This is going to be a very productive interview for so many of us out there. Again, pay attention to the sodium electrolyte in the mouth absorption. That is a problem fixer for a lot of people. And then also the water balloon sloshing around in your belly problem and how to take care of that. That is a huge problem fixer for a ton of people. Thank you, Jonathan, for coming on and talking to us about that. Let's go ahead and roll it. Here we go.
Welcome to the next level.
Yay! It worked. Oh.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that was killing me.
That's pretty funny. I was reading your bio and it says you're tech savvy, and I thought, okay, if anyone can figure it out, Red better be able to.
All right, I am here with Jonathan Toker, the founder of SaltStick's. How's it going?
Very well. Thanks for having me on today.
But I am so excited to have you on because so many of us have trouble with fueling and hydration, and so much of what ties that together is actually your electrolyte balance and making sure you have that in there. And it's almost, it's like a black art of like knowing how much to take and when and how much is the right amount. And the more we learn, we start finding out it actually varies per person. And when SaltStick reached out to me long ago to work with Zen and the Art of Triathlon, I was so excited because I had seen SaltStick around for years, and it's on all the pros' bikes. You can see it because of the SaltStick dispenser, which I don't know if you knew when you were building that thing about that was your advertising.
So I didn't, and a quick genesis of the company. So I've been in business 12 years,
right? And
since the beginning, basically in 2006, it started out basically as a product engineering company that I developed this product for myself, which was ostensibly a way to dispense capsules off a bicycle, keep them clean and dry. And I didn't even at that time have an idea that it was going to be a nutrition company. I didn't expect it to be much of anything other than a way that I could facilitate my own use of my products, basically.
Right.
And there was enough of a draw. Pros were coming to me. I had some samples out at Ironman in 2005, and some of the top pros were using prototypes that I'd made. And the feedback was phenomenally positive. And it just, I realized at that point that I had not only a product that was viable, but the potential for a company. And I pretty quickly came out with a capsule that embodied the best of the science at the time. And that's what SaltStick Caps is. And while there were other competitors in the marketplace at the time, I looked at the science, I looked at the literature, the peer-reviewed literature, what exercise physiologists had long determined was basically the composition of sweat. And I kind of brought it back to a base concept, which is you're trying to provide your body with the building blocks to replenish what you're losing in a form that your body can absorb, and in some measure the ratio that you're losing. So the idea is not to overwhelm your body with too much of any given material, because it's just not necessary. Your body will excrete anything excess. And so to be most efficient, and that's what SaltStick Caps became.
Yeah, so you were a pro triathlete, right? And
I was.
And
I
a
raced
pro
for
runner.
5 years.
How much, or not how do you, as a pro runner, that's a sport that I'm not really I came from a swimming background first and then got into triathlon. What do you do as a pro runner?
So I consider myself to be a elite trail runner.
No.
And
Oh,
so
cool.
it put me on the road, and I don't do so well. I love the trails. Something about the scenery.
Mhm.
I gravitate to the difficulty. Usually it's hilly, and to me that's the enjoyable part of it. And so I happen to be rather competitive in that sphere, even at my current age. I'm 43 right now. The ultra runners tend to be slightly older set, and so while the half marathon to 30K is my best distance, I've run some pretty successful 50Ks as well.
Mhm.
So I raced triathlon for many years. I started when I was down in San Diego with the Tri Club of San Diego,
Right.
and started in approximately 98. And by 2000, I was winning age group races, Wildflower, for example.
Mhm.
And an opportunity presented itself where basically at the time you could just kind of self-declare yourself to be a pro. I don't think it's that different today. USAT has some further regulations, but
Right.
at the time it was just an opportunity. It's like, when else am I going to do this? And I was good enough to at least be a second tier pro.
Mhm.
And I never aspired it to be my real profession, but it gave me an entry into races. It gave me the lifestyle. It gave me a reason to train as much as I did, frankly.
Right.
And I raced for 5 years, and then basically I've done some triathlon since then, but I've kind of gravitated more to the trail running.
I do the exact same thing. We have a fantastic trail run here in East Texas in Huntsville. It's the Rocky Raccoon.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And because where I live, it's there's no real mountains or hills or anything like that. Nothing substantial. That ends up, even though it's considered kind of flattish for trail running compared to like Colorado and all that, it ends up being wonderful from being around here. And it's like an hour from where I live. And for years, I haven't done it the past year, but for years I've gone and done the 50 and then the 100. And trail running is so great. It's such a compliment to triathlon too, because you can do triathlon in the summer and then maybe do some trail running in the winter and break it up a little bit.
It really is. It's great cross training, and I think the key with trail running is it keeps things fresh. Even if you run the same trail, for example, one direction, then go the other direction, it's like a new trail.
Yeah.
I think people love the speed of the road, and there's something about running on a solid surface. But I think anyone who has not been in the trail running circuit, it doesn't have to be racing. Just go out and train on a trail.
Yeah.
And you'll really get a lot of joy out of that.
Yeah, trail running. That's what I loved about it. It is so hard that just finishing. It's kind of like Ironman. It's like nobody really asks what your time is. Mm-hmm. That's one of the few sports where nobody asked what your time was. You ran 50 miles, or you ran 100, or you ran 50K, or whatever it is. People are around here. People say that's like running to Houston. That's what I.
To be fair, they still do ask what your time is, but it doesn't mean anything to them either. So
yeah, they do. Yeah,
they're just being polite.
Yeah, they don't know. They're like, oh yeah. And let's see. I did Wildflower in 2007, I think.
Oh yeah.
And it was so great. And I'm 44, so you and I are almost the same age. Mm-hmm. And SaltStick was so well established when you brought it onto the market, or so well done, that I thought it, honestly, Jonathan, I thought it had been around since the early 90s. It was such a polished product.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I have to say that it's a result of combination of a lot of factors, and I would say luck plays a small part in it. Basically, attention to detail plays a larger part. Mm-hmm. Athletes that are dedicated to the brand, and I thank them for the years of telling their friends, because I have to say that over the years, our media presence has been very minimal, and we don't take out ads in magazines. We do very little media work. In fact, we're increasing a little bit, but the fact is it's really by word of mouth. And I think that there's a lot of credibility to that, because you have, and over the years, many top pros have used the products, and for a couple of reasons. One is they work, and it's not a situation where they're getting free bikes or wetsuits or something that is lucrative. I mean, if a product works for a pro at that level, they're going to use it because it works, and not because they're getting any sort of special sponsorship deal. There's that, and there's the fact that we're we pay very close attention to, for example, testing for banned substances and having a clean process. And that's another factor that affects a lot of pros, and that they're very aware of that has happened with salt capsules in particular, and sports nutrition in general,
right,
as being the subject of inadvertent contamination. And, I wouldn't say anything about this, special packaging or anything like that. I mean, I came out with the original blue bottle early the first time, and I hope that it would be recognizable, and I think it has been, for example.
Yeah. I'm looking at one right now, and I'm going to get one out of my pantry too here in a second. But the Salt Stick bottle is definitely very recognizable. That was smart. And for people that don't know what we're talking about, I'll say it again. It's this black dispenser. It looks, in one way, I kind of call it a Pez dispenser, and like it's got a red top on it. And when you twist it, a capsule will work its way out with, I don't know, like 2-3 twists or something like that. A capsule will work its way out. And it's a way to keep your salt capsule free from sweat and water. And then when you want one, you can take one, is the big thing. And you'll see, if you look closely on photos and videos of pros and elite athletes, and all the way down to back of the Packers, you'll see these things zip tied to people's handlebars, to their top tube, sticking out of their bento box. It's really kind of a universal thing. If you look around and look closely, you'll see it. I'm gonna walk into my pantry and go grab one so I can read the label off the back.
And so you're exactly right on the dispenser, and that was the original salt stick. And people ask me, well, why do you call it a salt stick? Well, it's basically a stick that dispenses salt capsules. And I came up with that name, and it sort of stuck in my head. And
here we go.
It's been a
good
name. And
then and you've added it. We'll get to that. You've added a lot more stuff since then. But it's got a little bracket that comes with it. I'm holding it in my hand that you can clip it in and out of your handlebars really easily. And then what I found over the years that I do is I do that, and then also I'll do I'll put the capsules in a little Ziploc. Like if I'm trail running and I'm running with a little, I'll put the capsules in a little Ziploc, like in either in my pocket or in the bento box on my bike. It kind of depends. I don't need to use the stick. And then the other thing, many things I love about Salt Stick is because it's a capsule and not a hard pill. I tend to open them up when I make my fuel for like a long bike ride, for example. I'll say, well, my fuel bottle, I'm going to need 3 Salt Stick capsules. And I'll actually open the capsules and then shake them out into the bottle that I have all my fuel in. And that I'll shake up with all the fuel, and that way I've added it to the fuel straight at the source.
So you wouldn't be the first to do that.
Yeah.
Admittedly, there's different ways to consume products, and opening up the capsules is definitely a good way to do it. You do end up tasting a little bit of the salt.
That's
in
fine.
That case.
I do that to my coffee.
Yeah.
If I'm going for a long hot run and I'm having a cup of coffee in the morning, I
think we might be having some sound issues. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. So so you mentioned the salt stick itself, which is the dispenser, and then I just wanted to clarify for the listeners, there's a salt stick caps, which is the actual capsule product, and so that's the capsule that the salt stick dispenser can dispense, or like you said, a Ziploc bag works really well also. And just to reiterate, the rationale behind the salt stick caps product is that it contains the electrolytes that are lost in sweat, which is primarily sodium, and then smaller amounts of potassium, magnesium, and calcium. And the ratio of those is present in a similar ratio to what's lost in sweat. And the idea is that you're giving your body the building blocks to replace that. And just to step back for a moment, I think it's worth, obviously your listeners are well informed in general, but there could be some that aren't fully aware of the importance of electrolytes in sports. Can I just go over that briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. Because today I was doing a bike ride, and right as I was finishing, I started to get a cramp in my right abdomen, like one of my ab muscles, and that was unusual. and also my legs started to cramp up at the very end. And I thought, oh, I was a little low on electrolytes right there. I should have done a little bit more, and I knew that. I just didn't think about doing it. And can you talk about how that actually happens and what's going on there?
Sure. Now, what you just described could be due to electrolyte loss, especially since it's towards the end of your workout.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more likely to do with some nutrition imbalance as opposed to at the beginning of a workout where you stressed a muscle too much or something like that.
Right.
So it's important to clarify that not all cramps are due to electrolyte loss.
Absolutely.
But some cramps are due to electrolyte loss and imbalance. And if it is nutritionally based, then a product like SaltStick or a sports drink that contains electrolytes could be beneficial to help basically augment the amount of electrolytes that's circulating in the blood, and that will help alleviate the cramp. In the case of preemptively dealing with that, it's best obviously not to have a cramp or any nutrition issue in the first place. And so the idea is it's one of these products that when it works properly, you don't know that it's working in a sense until you don't take it and then something like a cramp or you have some nutrition issue. And so It's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So it's a bit difficult for some people to sort of get a sense of that unless, for example, they're habitual crampers. At a certain point, let's say they do a 2-hour bike ride, and at the end of that, every time they get a cramp in their, quad or something, taking SaltStick, for example, would be a great test because that would be a very reliable way to get a sense of that. Or, for example, people get night cramps. Maybe they've done a couple of workouts and then they go to sleep, and then in the middle of the night, they get a Charlie horse or something. And if they take SaltStick and they find that it alleviates that in a predictable way, then they definitely know that it should be working at that point.
Right. Yeah, if you're not exercising, you're in the middle of sleep, but you've done a hard day that day. You've done a brick, it's 3 hours, 4 hours, just all kinds of working out, and you're asleep that night though, and then all of a sudden your leg, your hamstring or your quad just snaps up in pain. That's nutrition, right?
It's likely to be.
Yeah.
It's impossible for me to say so. Just
True.
In this case, but it's pretty easy to test that also because if you are in that situation and you take some electrolytes in the middle of the night, pop a capsule, for example, like that, it should actually help the situation within 5, 10, 15 minutes, and
right.
That's a pretty good indication that your electrolyte levels were off. So. Just want to step back here, and I wanted to go over for your listeners who may not be as aware of the nutritional importance of electrolytes. So we talked about some of the symptoms, but what actually happens? Why do electrolytes get off balance? And it's worth mentioning that in sweat, once again, there's a significant amount of sodium that's lost, which some people would appear, for example, as white stains on dark clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs, for example, like licking legs of people that have a lot of salt in their sweat.
Yeah. My dog
does
that.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a natural reaction, and it's one of the mechanisms that our body actually facilitates the loss of sweat, because having a concentration of salt outside actually helps draw water out, and that is a cooling effect. And so that's actually beneficial. Unfortunately, what happens is if you lose too much salt, then your body basically just doesn't have enough. Mm-hmm. And even if you continue to hydrate, unless you hydrate with enough salt replacement, you're going to be basically diluting the remaining salt that's in your blood and in your body. And that could lead to a condition called hyponatremia, which is in particular for sodium, but it affects there's a hypokalemia, which is for potassium. Mm-hmm. But basically, it's low electrolytes. When you have too low electrolyte concentration, in other words, you have too much fluid and too few electrolytes in that fluid.
Right.
And the solution's pretty easy in general, and it's basically to hydrate properly, and that means not to be overhydrated and not to be underhydrated, and also to supply the right electrolyte replacement. And that means that something like a sports drink may not be strong enough, may not have enough electrolytes to replace the actual electrolytes that you're losing. The range, as you mentioned early on, is huge. Nutrition is very individualized, and so a lot of the questions we get from athletes and our customers is, how much should I take of SaltStick or any other product? And frankly, it's difficult to give a boilerplate answer We generally say that the ideal is to replace between 50 and 80% of what you lose. You can get yourself tested. There are testing facilities and ways you can send off samples to find out exactly how much electrolyte material you're losing in sweat. Also do kind of a rough estimate. You can determine how many basically milliliters or grams of fluid loss per hour, and then you can do an estimate based on the average salt content. Or the best thing is, and the simplest, frankly, is just to continue to consume electrolytes in a quantity that you can monitor and increase and decrease depending on your workout, and then just see what works for you to make you feel best.
Yeah, I've heard, I forgot, it was Lionel Sanders or another famous pro, but many will say this, that they finally got around to getting themselves tested to see how much electrolytes they lose, and it changed everything. Then all of a sudden they were able to go without cramping anymore and drink the right amount of water. And also another one is to see how much water you lose, which is probably a little bit easier, don't you think? You can just weigh yourself.
It is, and
Yeah.
I would recommend for your listeners to go online and just do a quick Google search on fluid loss and find out how much they're losing. It's basically you weigh yourself before you do a workout, you weigh yourself after. There's certain parameters that you have to be careful about in terms of the lack of clothing that you're wearing, accommodating for any urination in the process of exercise and stuff like that. But if all things being equal, the difference in your weight between before and after exercise divided by the amount of time that you're out training is the fluid loss per hour or per minute.
Right.
And based on that, you can determine some measure of how much you're trying to replace.
I was
Go ahead.
shocked. I lose when I've started weighing myself. I lose between 2.5 to 3 liters per hour.
Yeah.
Because it's so hot here, and that's at the high end. But there's lots of us at that high end.
There are.
Yeah.
There are people underestimate that, and especially when you're either your clothes are already wet and therefore you don't know how much additional fluid you're losing, or if it's really dry out, for example, in a desert climate, and the fluid is evaporating, and so you don't have wet clothes, and it's very misleading to know how much fluid you're losing in those instances.
So let's say you're losing 2.5, 3 liters per hour of fluid, and let's say you manage to take that back in, so you've got that part covered. But let's say also you're an average electrolyte loser. Taking in that amount of fluid to stay hydrated, I don't know how to phrase it, but are you rinsing out a lot of your electrolytes if you're not taking electrolytes with that water coming in?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the process is that you continue to hydrate, you're going to dilute what you have left. And your body will start accommodating for that dilution, and it will start sequestering the water. And, for example, you'll get kind of a water baby in your stomach because your body will actually try not to absorb the water, so it'll keep it in your stomach rather than absorbing it, because every time it absorbs another milliliter of water, it's diluting the existing electrolytes in your bloodstream.
Wait,
is that
water? Is that what when you're? I've had that happen so many times where you've got it feels like a water sloshing around in your stomach.
That would be due to basically low electrolytes in general, and I'm generalizing here.
Yeah.
And so if you were able to consume electrolytes with that fluid, for example, in the form of a capsule or 2 capsules, it would help absorb the water, because your body would want to absorb the water because the water contains salts at this point. And based on the homeostasis, which is the body's mechanism of keeping things unchanged or at a normal physiological level, your body's amazing. I mean, it's keeping electrolyte balance within normal range is its primary goal in that particular instance.
Yeah.
And it does a great job of it. And for example, if you overhydrate, you'll pee out, dilute pee. If you have too little fluid, your body will retain the fluid that it has, and that's one of the reasons you're dehydrated is, if you pee out and it's yellow or brown, you're very dehydrated because your body is basically concentrated to retain as much water as possible, and at some point the urine just it gets so concentrated. So You had mentioned an example, for example, 2 to 3 liters per hour, and then you had mentioned, trying to replace that. And so I do not recommend in general for athletes to try to replace exactly what they're losing. I think that's a losing battle, because there's really no way physiologically to absorb as much as that.
Right.
And especially calories, our body just can't process the calories. And the same thing with electrolytes, for that matter. And so that's when I said 50 to 80%. If you're doing a long workout, you will get dehydrated by the end of the workout or the race.
Right.
And your electrolyte level, chances are, will have gone down, and you will be depleted calorically. All of those things are acceptable. The question is, how much of it can you get away with? And the elite marathoners, for example, doing 205, 210 for a marathon, I mean, they get to the finish line 3 to 5% dehydrated. And that's okay, because they're at the finish line. The thing is, if you're doing an Ironman and you're 3 to 5% halfway through, then you have a problem.
Right. And in that case, you just need to slow down and
rehydrate.
Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning at this point, because we're throwing some of these terms around. I'm a strong proponent of separating out hydration, so fluid, electrolytes, sodium, potassium in particular, and calories in whatever form. People argue that there's different, better forms and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into that here, but separating those three things out in a sports drink, they're basically usually linked together. So every sip you take of a given sports drink, you're getting calories, you're getting the fluid, and you're getting electrolytes.
Right.
And for some people, that may work, especially if it's a customized sports drink. But for a lot of people, it doesn't. And so every time you take a sip, you're getting calories when your body's not willing to absorb calories because the intensity is too high. Or, for example, you're taking too little electrolyte content for as much hydration. I mean, it's a one size fits all that generally fits nobody.
Right.
I've had
that happen with a friend where his water and fuel was all one. He did some sort of version of something like Gatorade, and we were mountain biking in San Diego out in the desert, and I had my calories and my water separate, and he was starting to get sick to his stomach. Right.
Yeah.
So then he couldn't drink water anymore without wanting to throw up because of because his water had sugar in it.
Right.
And it was too much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's really, really interesting. You are one of many people that I've heard say that. And I've been doing the water and fuel definitely separate, 100%. But I haven't been doing so much the electrolytes separate because I hadn't really figured that out yet. But something new that you just mentioned a little while ago that is so, I don't think I've ever heard that before, about the water baby is what you called it.
Yeah.
Is a symptom of your body is rejecting the water because it doesn't have enough electrolytes in it. And it's trying to preserve your electrolyte balance. And if it lets that water in, it's going to dilute your electrolytes. And your body knows that could lead to hyponatremia or cramping and all kinds of stuff.
Basically, I mean, that's a simplified description, and I've given it in that way as well. But essentially, that's it. And for your body to prevent the water absorption, it's already obviously deficient in electrolytes. It doesn't know what the future holds. So it's basically a reactionary mechanism.
But I've had that happen so many times. I've done Ironmans where I get off the bike and start running, and then a little while later, the sloshy stomach.
Yeah, and I've had that too. Frankly, I remember a race at Big Rock Triathlon, Lake Paris, and I got off the bike and it looked like I was pregnant. I mean, I remember after the race, Paula Newby Fraser at that point took me aside and it's like, hey, I have a solution for you. You need more salt. Yeah. And this was maybe 99 or something. And I was learning. Right. I mean, I would go out on a bike ride and basically have water and chocolate. That was my fueling strategy when I first started. And obviously my first swim was breaststroke. So things have come a long way since those days.
Yeah. So let's talk about Scripps. You got a PhD in organic chemistry, and I used to live in San Diego. And is this the same Scripps Research Institute that looks over the ocean?
It's the same but different. So it's another one that looks over the ocean. I think the one you're thinking of probably is the Scripps Oceanography, which is definitely the better known of the two.
That place is beautiful.
It is,
Yeah.
and it's part of UCSD actually, so it's world famous. The Scripps that I went to is called fully the Scripps Research Institute, and it's more of a biomedical chemistry research institute. There's no undergrads there. It's just a graduate and postgraduate program that help run basically research among there's probably 20 to 30 different PIs. What are they? Principal investigators.
Right.
And it really spans cutting edge research. The facilities are top notch, and I liken that experience a bit like to drinking from a fire hose at full intensity. It was really interesting, but I have to say, really my survival technique for that was to start doing triathlon, and I would say that really saved me and allowed me to get my PhD, because without that counterpoint to being in the lab and doing all the research, I don't think I would have been able to manage that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stress relief.
It really was. One of my favorite stories is one day I went into the lab, so I was primarily benchtop chemist in the lab and all that. I set up a reaction, and I went swimming at the sports place next door. And about halfway through my swim, one of my colleagues who knew where I was came and was waving to me. He's like, "Jonathan, your reaction blew up in the fume hood." and so it turned out it was my fault. It was just like a venting error, but it's funny how triathlon, even at that point, was kind of getting in the way of my actual work.
Yeah. I remember that the other Scripps Institute. So I went to Texas A&M for bachelor's and master's, and then my second job was out in San Diego, and driving around, and I turned into a surfer, obviously, because that's what a good thing to do out there is. And I was surfing in the morning before work, and then mountain biking in the afternoon after work, and it was the life. It was amazing. But I would see that university, that Scripps, the oceanography college or university. Is it a oceanography college or university?
I don't know what it's exactly, but it's a division of UCSD.
Yeah, well, I almost had a minor in oceanography. I was 1 hour short of a minor in oceanography. I loved it so much. Yeah. And I remember seeing that campus overlooking the ocean, and I thought, oh man, I went to the wrong school. And then I saw all these guys surfing, and I mean the surf zone is right. It's beautiful, and I thought, you know what? If I went to Scripps, I would have failed out. I would have been down at the beach surfing all the time. So, but
surfing is definitely a cultural part down there.
Yeah.
I ended up doing triathlon, and because San Diego is San Diego, and it really still is a mecca of triathlon.
Yeah.
I grew up really not much of an athlete. I did some canoeing, gymnastics, badminton, kind of off sports and very non-competitive.
Right.
And it was only when I moved out to San Diego for Scripps that I started doing triathlon at any sort of level. The fact that I ended up being a pro was completely random, and never would have scripted that before. The other thing I was going to mention is, we're talking a lot about history, and so Scripps, obviously I learned chemistry at Scripps, and I was able to apply those skills to help develop SaltStick. And part of the other skill set that I think I learned there was being a critical thinker and a problem solver. Right. And so anyone who's interested in grad school or advanced education, it's rarely about the actual information that you learn there. I mean, the information I learned at Scripps was not the scientific information. It was more the process of scientific discovery, the process of problem solving, the process of communicating science and results. And all of those things have been useful in developing SaltStick as a product, which, once again, I would never have scripted that either. It just happened, and one thing led to another. But I wouldn't have been able to achieve that without the skills that I learned in grad school, for example.
Yeah, let me get the SaltStick capsules here. I just put them down where they go. And while I get them, I have a comment on that too. Is in high school, people can have really good grades really based on what you can memorize and regurgitate on a test. And then when you start getting into college, and especially at advanced degrees, it's not what to think, but it's how to think.
Yes,
And
I agree with you completely.
And that's why there's a resurgence now. I've noticed in people talking about philosophy degrees, or at least philosophy classes, because that definitely teaches you how to think. It teaches you how people thought, different patterns and methods of thinking, like worldviews and stuff, from all around the world and throughout history, to kind of give you an idea that there's many ways of thinking about something and presenting, and you can learn many of them actually instead of just one, and then you end up using all of them in life for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's read off some of the ingredients because this is fun. People are going to want to know what this is. So the big one, actually, you said sodium, but I mean chloride. It's a little bit more chloride, but that makes up table salt, right? Sodium and chloride.
That's correct.
Okay, so what is the role of sodium versus chloride?
So sodium is a positive electrolyte. Basically, its presence is primarily outside the cell, that is in the bloodstream.
Okay.
And it, along with potassium, which is a higher concentration inside the cell, there's basically a sodium-potassium pump. And that basically enables a charge to be created and to be destroyed. So a charge, an electrical charge. And that charge creation and destruction basically allows muscles to function. So it's a give and take in a sense. And the chloride is along for the ride in most cases. There are some biological processes that involve chloride. So it's Cl minus. So that's sodium plus Cl minus, and together they produce a neutral salt.
Right.
And so salt is the most common. So table salt is the most common electrolyte, and a lot of the products use it, but it's not the only source of sodium. For example, the CAPS Plus, which I developed a couple of years ago, is a high-end version of the CAPS product, and that has caffeine in it. The other difference is that it uses sodium citrate, and that's actually easier on the stomach than sodium chloride. And citrate, as opposed to chloride, is actually involved in the Krebs energy cycle, and so that actually can facilitate the body's energy production if there's a deficiency there. So there's different ways to look at the ingredients, and you're right to look at the ingredients on packages, and I think that's something that a lot of people overlook.
Well, it's also got the amounts, right? And then so you can compare. Like, we could look at this and see how much sodium is in one capsule versus how much sodium is in Gatorade, for example. And then you know what you're dealing, at least between those two, what you're dealing with.
Exactly. And that cross comparison is very important. And the FDA and the label requirements for supplements has evolved over time. And there's actually a new evolution that's just happening right now with the rules that are going to be rolled out over the next few years in terms of, depending on the size of the business. The goal is to allow consumers to make educated decisions and informed choices about what products they're going to use. Right. And this goes for all food items as well, in fact. And you know what the nutrition facts label looks like. And so for supplements, it's called supplement facts. One of the things that I'm very proud of is through SaltStick is that we're always very transparent about everything that's in our products, the nutrition, the specs in terms of how much salt is in a given capsule. There's none of this magic secret electrolyte mix where they don't tell you what it is. They just hope you believe it. And so I like that transparency, and I think that comes from the scientific basis that I came from. Because frankly, if it's not disclosed, then you don't know what it is, and it's just a dark black box, and I don't like that as a scientist.
Yeah, a full big chunk of your label on the caps, for example, is the supplement facts and how much is in one capsule, which is typically what people would be measuring it out by. So so again, sodium and potassium. Sodium's outside the cell. Potassium is inside the cell. Is that what you said? And they act as
there's some in both compartments.
Right, but they act as a pump to transfer one to the other, to get it into the cell?
And to get it, basically sodium drifts into the cell, potassium drifts out of the cell, and then the pump is basically to put them back where they belong. And
okay.
I'm simplifying the process. We actually have a blog. If anyone's curious, on SaltStick.com, there's a blog. Then you can read about some more on that. whenever you talk about these kind of biological processes, it's, even for me, it's kind of a simplification because they're so complex. There's so many different aspects that are involved that the only way that you can sort of make sense of it is to simplify it. Mm-hmm. The problem with simplification is you actually leave out a lot of important details, and sometimes it's those important details that are actually the
issue,
the crux of it, the issue. And I mean, I can't think of an example at this very moment, but I just thought of something. For example, the absorption of calcium is facilitated by vitamin D. Right. And so if you simplify and say, well, the body needs calcium, give it calcium, end of story, that's fine. But if you look at the details, researchers have found that addition of vitamin D helps with calcium absorption, for example. And if you look at any given calcium supplement, generally they have vitamin D. And so that's one of the reasons why I put vitamin D in the original formulation of SaltStick caps. Now, the addition of calcium is actually pretty nominal. It's a very small amount. Mm-hmm. Does help with providing calcium and could help with preventing the leaching of calcium from bones, which is, we have a huge amount of calcium in our body bound up in bones. It's calcium carbonate primarily. And one of the issues with endurance athletes and cyclists in particular is sweat loss and the potential for actually developing an osteoporosis type condition. And between the acidity that's generated in blood through metabolic action and the loss of calcium in sweat and other means, you can actually pull calcium out of the bones. And I've had actually friends that have had issues with osteoporosis type conditions. So runners are less likely to have that issue because of the weight-bearing aspect, but cyclists definitely need to be aware of that.
Yeah. Every once in a while we see somebody that gets a stress fracture, and I wonder if that, or a broken foot or something like that. And it seems odd, like they didn't really do anything major. And I guess I wonder if they're developing a little bit of weakened bones.
It's possible, and a stress fracture is called a fracture, but it's kind of a different process. But certainly a broken foot, something like that, if anyone has any concern, they should probably see their physician. Mm-hmm. There's a DEXA scan, which is a very low radiation form of getting your bone density tested and primarily used on women. But if you're a male and you have this potential issue and you tell them you're an endurance cyclist, more than likely you'll be able to get a DEXA scan, for example, as part of a routine checkup. And I'd highly recommend that for anyone who might be considering they might be at risk.
Yeah, and on the sodium potassium pump thing, is that pump, you said it's actually like a contraction. Is that what happens when a muscle contracts? Is that what causes it?
It's no. It's a development of a charge.
Okay.
That pump basically is the development and the destruction of that charge. Okay. And I mean, in a muscle cell, that charge will cause the muscle to contract, but it's not, as far as I understand, the actual flow of sodium and potassium that causes the muscle to contract. It's the development of that charge, and when you get basically an unbalancing of the electrolytes, you can get random charges that basically the muscle will contract uncontrollably. The other thing that's worth mentioning is the importance of magnesium and calcium in the whole process, which are actually have been shown to help allow muscles to relax. And so there's two aspects. Obviously, there's the contraction, there's the relaxation of a muscle. A muscle that's contracted and cannot relax would be considered to be cramping as well.
Right.
And so having a significant amount of of magnesium and calcium, those are important for the relaxation of muscles. And a lot of people have found that additional magnesium supplementation has been helpful above and beyond what's in SaltStick. And so it's certainly a potential additional supplement for someone to consider if they find themselves in that condition.
Yeah. When I look at the ingredients, it's sodium, chloride, potassium, and then, like you said, vitamin D, and calcium and magnesium. And so many times I'll just put some, I'll do like sea salt or Himalayan pink salt or something like that in my fuel or in my water or in my I don't know, just on something I'm drinking or eating, and I know that that's the sodium and chloride, and maybe it's got a little bit of other stuff in it, but as I'm doing that, I'm telling myself, Brett, the real stuff is in your pantry. It's the salt stick with the it's actually got the vitamin D3 and calcium and magnesium in it and potassium.
So that's a good observation.
Yeah.
And your body, frankly, doesn't know a given source of sodium. It doesn't know if it comes from the mines of Moria, in the Lord of the Rings, or if it's from, the Himalayan pink sea salt or whatever it is. Sodium is sodium,
right,
by and large. The trace elements that you're mentioning are present in natural sources of sodium, but they're in such small amounts that basically if you have a normal diet, you're going to get enough molybdenum in your diet that adding molybdenum through Himalayan pink sea salt is just not necessary.
Right.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not going to be actually physiologically helpful to you. So the important thing, though, is because we're losing mostly sodium in sweat, that's definitely the major player. And so if you're doing something that's perhaps an hour or too long in terms of endurance training or an event, you could probably get away with minimal supplementation or potentially get away with packets from McDonald's of salt or something like that. The issue arises when you have longer endurance events and potassium, magnesium, and calcium start coming into play, because those are lost at slower rates, but their contribution starts increasing as time goes on. And so once again, you can get away with just sodium supplementation for shorter distance events, but it's basically lacking in the full spectrum of electrolytes that are needed for proper supplementation.
So let's talk about the fast chews, which is one of my favorite things because I love the flavor of it, and sometimes I just eat them like candy. I don't know if I should.
You and me both.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, I realized through customer feedback that the capsules, while they were efficient and they were effective, they also presented a problem, which is that they're somewhat large for people, especially smaller people, women, and they also have a lot of electrolytes in one single capsule. It's 215 milligrams of sodium and then corresponding amounts at lower ratio of the potassium, magnesium, and calcium, and the vitamin D. And so that's a lot to take in for some people, especially smaller people. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, I started doing research into seeing different formats and different amounts of electrolytes that could be provided, and ended up, after a lot of R&D, with these fast chews, which are chewable tablets. And so they are flavored. I have two flavors currently, lemon lime and orange. And people seem to like them about equally, for that matter. And the idea is that it's the same electrolytes in the capsule, but at a lower dose. So in fact, you need approximately four of the fast chews to equal one capsule. Mm-hmm. But it's a tasty candy-like material, and they come, it's basically the shape and size of a Tums. And so they're easy to consume in multiples, and they're tasty, and it gives you a different sort of palate taste compared with all the gels or other fluids, and it still gives you that solid electrolyte replacement where you don't necessarily need fluid along with it, and so you can customize once again your nutrition.
Yeah, I absolutely love them. They the flavor is good. The sodium's not overpowering at all. They're tangy. And then the greatest thing is they break apart in your mouth really easily, and they almost melt.
Well, they do, and that's by design, because in fact the absorption is actually somewhat faster through the buccal membrane. So that's basically the tissue in your mouth. And if you are actually experiencing cramping issues or deficient in electrolytes at any given time, if you take a fast chews, for example, and put it under your tongue and just suck on it and don't actually chew it and eat it, you're actually going to get electrolytes in your system a bit faster than if you take a capsule, for example, which takes a couple of minutes to open up in the stomach and then to be absorbed through the stomach and eventually the intestines. It's faster. And so there's a format question, but there's also a rate question, which is faster for the fast chews.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So developing the product, I came out with a little saying, which some of your listeners may recognize, is based on a Dr. Seuss riddle, in a sense, or saying, which is, how many fast chews could a fast chew if a fast chew could chew fast chews? The idea of like a chew being a train.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came up with this logo of a train. So how many fast chews could a fast chew if a fast chew could chew fast chews? And I had people in Kona a few years ago, and I came up with a product, say that as fast as they could. And it was kind of a fun little contest. So I might have to do some more with that. Since then I haven't.
The one I learned was as a kid was how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Right.
Yeah. And so I said Dr. Zeus because I think I was inspired by the Zeusian sort of terminology. But yes, it is based on the woodchuck thing. Hey, I wanted to mention that one of the reasons that triathletes gravitate to SaltStick, frankly, is because it works. And how do we know that it works? Is because there's actually been a double-blind placebo-controlled study that was done in Spain a few years ago. And this is in a blog entry on our website, and I'd just be remiss not to mention it because people talk a lot about anecdotal evidence, and anecdotal evidence is weighted very poorly in science. Basically, It's someone said they think something happened and therefore it may have happened, that sort of thing. It's people telling other people, hey, this is my story. And when you have that, it's not to say that there's no credibility there. It's just that the number of people that is involved is one. So it's an N of one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the control is really important in science, where there's a lot of variables, the temperature outside, how long you're going, are you in a good mood, a bad mood, that sort of phase of the moon, everything. Those are all variables. Some of them are more significant than others. And the thing about science is to try to control as many variables as possible, and then to control the variables that you can control, and then change the variables that you want to change. For example, a dose, how frequently or how much you're giving a patient or an athlete, and then see what the results are. And then the ideal scientific study, and a lot of people throw these terms around without necessarily knowing their full meaning, but a placebo-controlled, meaning that you have basically a sugar pill or a dummy pill that looks like the actual active ingredient but is not, and that helps control against the placebo effect, which is a real effect where people will benefit by something just because they think it will benefit them.
Right.
And then double blind basically means the people that are administering the products actually don't know which the patient is getting, whether it's a placebo or the active.
Oh, that's perfect, because they can actually signal without knowing it which one they're giving. Yeah,
it's all coded, and so people that are administering the study don't know anything until the study is unblinded, which happens only after all the results are in. And then basically they said, oh, patient number one had this result, and patient number one was a placebo person. And then patient two, anyways, the point is that there's certain rigor associated with better clinical studies, and it exceeds by all stretch of imagination anything to do with anecdotal evidence of like, hey, Joe took this product and it worked for him. Once again, that's helpful to know, and that could be the basis for scientific studies, but the gold standard is a double-blind placebo-controlled study. And so we were fortunate, actually, and oddly enough, I only found out about this after it was published. I never was involved with the actual supplying the product or anything. It actually happened through our Spanish distributor, which was, once again, I never heard about it until it was published. But the good thing was that the results showed, and this was a small study, there were only 26 athletes involved. Half of them were in the placebo group, half of them were in the SaltStick group. And the only difference between the two groups that they were able to make a change, so a variable that they deliberately changed, was basically whether they had SaltStick or not. All other issues were kind of in terms of their fluid intake, and all the other parameters were normalized between the two groups as best as they could. And the larger the population, if they had 100 people instead of 13 people in each group, that would be better, statistically better. But nevertheless, even with a small group, and it was once again placebo-controlled blind study, they found that athletes, this is a half Ironman, so typical 4 to 5 hour race for the top people. In this case, their average was about 5 hours and 10 minutes, I think. The people using SaltStick, the athletes using SaltStick, were about 8% faster in their overall time than those who were not using SaltStick. and that was a statistically significant difference based on the actual analysis that was done. The other thing is they maintained their weight. They didn't lose as much fluid as the people that were not taking SaltStick. So they were actually less dehydrated, and also not surprisingly, their electrolyte level in their plasma and their blood was maintained in a more normal way than those who were not taking salt. So basically all very positive results. And once again, there's all sorts of caveats around studies like this. It was small, it was done with a specific population of men, not women, all that sort of thing. But basically, you have to take also the benefits of a study like this and say, hey, this is something that's statistically significant, and maybe it can help other athletes.
Yeah, and also I didn't know about the keeping the water weight on, which is really important for recovery, because so few of our exercise-induced days are actually races. And we, especially as triathletes train back to back. Like I did 3 hours today, and I'm going to do 3 hours again tomorrow, hopefully. And you know what makes 3 hours on day 2 really painful? It's being dehydrated from the day before.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so having the right amount of electrolytes in your day-to-day training is huge, because it's no, you don't go into a race expecting it. You shouldn't. Some people do, but you shouldn't expecting a miracle. It's what you're doing in training that you can tell what's going on, and that's where all the work is done. And if you're well fueled and well hydrated, that could people that want to break through to the next level. Let's say that somebody's right at the midline. They're at the 50% of iron. When they do half Ironmans or Ironmans, and or a marathon, and they want to move up, to the top 25%. Then this is looking at their electrolytes and their water weight that they're losing could be a huge boost to them. That might be the missing link for that one part.
It really could be. And I think the whole role here of nutrition and hydration is to allow yourself to perform at the best that you're able to based on your training.
Right.
And so the idea is not to get into an event and say, man, that was so tough. I was dying because I was hungry, or I was out of fluid, or whatever it was. It shouldn't be a mechanical on your bike. You need to take care of your bicycle. It shouldn't be that your shoes were missing laces because whatever, your dog ate them. It needs to be nutrition is something that can be controlled. And there is a huge variance between even the same person over different days. And that's where your training comes in. And when you're actually racing, knowing how your body's feeling and what you need on any given day. There's stories about some of the top pros back in the day, I don't know, the 80s or 90s. They'd win an Ironman and they'd go down, they'd write down everything they had during the race, thinking that was it. That's all they had to do is repeat that the next time they'd win again.
Right.
It's not that simple.
No,
now, that's a good basis. And as a good scientist would say, that's a good way to determine the future in a sense. But it's also, one day is never the same as the previous day. And your point about being well hydrated for the next training day is absolutely vital. And especially if you have some alcohol, if you eat a lot, stuff like that, you definitely want to rehydrate properly. And that would involve appropriate amounts of electrolytes, whether it's SaltStick or some other product that will give you back, some measure what you're losing.
Let's talk about the other SaltStick products. You have the Caps Plus, and that has, like you said, a little bit of caffeine and sodium citrate in it.
It does. It does. So I came up with that product in 2011 as a result of customer feedback and further research that I did. Caffeine is a legal ergogenic aid, and that basically means that it is a permitted substance that has performance enhancing.
Right.
And the reason that WADA and IOC cannot, or have chosen rather, not to ban it is because it's so prevalent. Coffee, tea, soft drinks, a lot of the food, chocolate that we eat has caffeine in it, and therefore it's just impossible to kind of get a handle on how much we're consuming. So it's allowed, and studies have shown that it actually provides a performance enhancement. Certain people are concerned about, for example, its propensity for causing dehydration.
Yeah.
And that is actually shown not to be the case for athletes doing endurance events. As long as you're actually consuming water, it doesn't act as a diuretic.
Okay.
It is ergogenic, and therefore SaltStick Caps Plus is kind of the high-end race performance version that I came out with. It's only 30 milligrams of caffeine per capsule, so that's about equivalent of a third of a cup of coffee.
Right.
But over time, if you consume 2 to 3 capsules per hour, for example, that's like drinking a cup of coffee per hour. And if you're doing, say, a 9-hour Ironman, 10-hour Ironman, you're going to be doing, it's like drinking 10 cups of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fine over the course of 10 hours, and it actually is a great benefit. The other use of it is for endurance athletes doing overnight events, for example, which obviously now I'm speaking
trail
to
running.
a smaller portion of your audience, but if you're doing an adventure race or an ultra run, like 100 miles, running overnight, having that extra caffeine can make a big difference to staying awake.
Yeah. I notice it when I have fuel with caffeine in it. Like say I'm mid-ride and I start drinking something with caffeine in it, I can tell immediately my body reacts very well to caffeine. And I actually have to be a little bit careful with it because my body feels like it's borrowing energy against time.
And there's something
really
to
works.
be said for that. Yeah. I mean, you know your body best, and if you have that effect, or if that has caffeine has that effect on you, then it's good that you're aware of that, and then you can.
Yeah, I can use it, and then I pay really close attention to it. But in trail running, right? You come up to the table that has all your food and everything, and they got gels laid out. Almost all of them have caffeine in it, and I have to start asking, do you have any without caffeine? And what drives me crazy is they go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you need to know, because what if somebody has a problem with caffeine or they're acting over caffeinated? I've almost passed out one time from having too much caffeine at a race.
Well, my suggestion for you in that case, and for any of your listeners, would be frankly just carry all your own fuel with you. And aid stations, even at ultra races, are there to assist you, but to rely on their food choices. Oh yeah,
that's Russian roulette right there.
It really is, especially if you have certain dietary needs. Yep. I mean, having a belt that carries enough gels, the appropriate pills and nutrition for you. I mean, I would recommend trying to just rely on getting water at the aid stations, and beyond that, I mean, that's to me, that's the way to resolve that.
One time, it was towards the end of a 50-miler, and I was doing pretty good, and then I started getting low, and I ate some Oreos that they had at a station, and those things are terrible for you, but man, my body used that. Like, it loved it. It was the best thing. Yeah. That was a surprise too. I said, well, I'll try anything right now. And I tried one of those, and that was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, the best pizza I've ever eaten has been in the medical tent after Ironman Hawaii.
They should make a brand, medical tent pizza.
Yeah. That's by far the best ever pizza. And I'm sure it was terrible pizza, but it tasted so good.
We have a new pizza place here in College Station, Texas. It's a converted. It was the old pharmacy in the middle of old downtown Bryan, which is our sister city, and it got sold and then turned into a pizza place, and it's called Prescription Pizza, and it's got an RX on it. It's pretty funny, and it's really good. People really love it. Okay, so we have SaltStick Caps Plus. Let me see. I want to make sure I'm missing anything, because you got a bunch of stuff. What's the Vitassium
that you're missing is Vitassium.
Yeah.
So SaltStick Vitassium I developed approximately 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it was in response to ongoing consumer demand for SaltStick products for medical conditions that include POTS, POTS, which is a postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Oh, yeah. And a couple other conditions, EDS and cystic fibrosis as well. And what those are, basically, they're autonomic conditions where your body, for various reasons, and they're not diseases per se, they're symptoms.
Right.
And they basically, for various reasons, your body cannot keep the blood pressure normalized when you change your position. And so it's postural, and that means basically if you're lying down, if you get up quickly, many of us, myself included, you may get a little bit of a narrowing of your vision. You may get, you may feel it in your ears, but very quickly your body's able to compensate for that change in position, and your heart rate goes up and your blood pressure is maintained and everything's fine. In these people, basically, there's a problem and they end up fainting. And this is very common. And the physicians and these patients themselves have found, and it's been documented in literature research as well, that the addition of salt is a pretty easy way to deal with this for a lot of patients. Now, it doesn't, once again, address the underlying condition for whatever reason that they have this. It doesn't work for everyone, but under physician guidance, it seems to work really well for certain people.
Right.
And so they were starting to use SaltStick caps, and based on consumer feedback, I was able to develop SaltStick Vitasium, which basically is a smaller capsule, does not contain any magnesium or calcium because that is not relevant to that population.
Right.
It's actually a medical food, which is basically available by prescription, and it's to be used under the guidance of a physician. And the capsules are a bit smaller, and that's it. And they're more concentrated, so it's 250 milligrams of sodium. So for any one of your listeners who could be either has POTS or could have a friend or someone who has any sort of issues with fainting that could be due to inability of the body to maintain blood pressure, it could be something that could be relevant to them.
Yeah.
It's not designed for athletes. And once again, it's SaltStick caps, and the original products are 100% better for athletes in the context of doing endurance sports. But for medical patients, Vitasium is definitely the way to go. And that's so
Very
they
cool.
can get more information on Vitasium.com as well. If they're
Yeah, I'll see if my wife knows about this because she's a nurse, and she was a hospice nurse. That's kind of, people don't know, that's kind of like end of life nursing, and then for 8 to 10 years, and now she's a chemotherapy clinic nurse. And so they've got people that are very weakened from having to take chemo and all kinds of different things. And they have this a lot where people stand up and then pass out.
Yeah. So
but triathletes know this when you swim and you're laying prone for a long time and then you stand up and try to run to the transition area.
Yes.
And you get all
related.
dizzy.
Yeah, it's not easy, and that's related in the sense it's your body's ability or inability to compensate for changes in position. Once again, for most healthy people, it's a temporary thing like I said, it happens to me. Again,
but it needs to be temporary in us.
Exactly.
Yeah, and these are people that have to deal with it because of some other issue. It's showing up as a symptom. Very cool. That's great that you've made that.
Yeah, it's helped. The feedback we've received has been overwhelmingly positive, and we get a lot of complimentary emails and feedback through our website. And any of your listeners who love to share their feedback, we'd love to hear it as well. So direct them to the saltstick.com website. And I'd also be remiss not to mention that there's a ZenTri discount.
That's right.
Our website as well, and I don't know how you communicate that to your listeners. Do we just say the discount code over the air, or do you have?
Yeah. I say it every episode. I say they go to saltstick.com/ZenTri, and then there's a password. But we're so cool that our name is our own password.
It is.
And I whisper, it's ZenTri. That's how it works. It's super easy. Yeah.
We appreciate your support and telling all your listeners about the brand. And once again, we've gotten really positive feedback, and it feels good to be a part of that, because once again, I didn't come into this expecting to develop it into a business. I didn't come into this for any other reason other than initially to develop a product for myself that worked, and knowing after one of my first early half marathons that if my shoe had gotten untied, I would never been able to tie it again, because leaning over I would have cramped up too badly. And all that through my background and my experience, and then looking at the chemistry and stuff, developing the products, and then to come kind of full circle, and here it is, have products out there for people to use, and getting positive feedback has been really gratifying.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm in this for the exact same reason. I started doing triathlon for myself, and then when I started to realize what an amazing sport it is. And I wanted to start sharing it with everybody to let them know, so I started doing the podcast to just communicate with people. Like, when you're out, what I found the most amazing thing is the early morning workouts, what you see in the world, and then also on long bike rides, the amazing world, and then trail running, right? And it's such a more amazing life and world out there. So many things that you see, and the people involved are fantastic. And you don't have to just turn into an adult and then go to work and then go home and watch TV and go to bed and then feel like crap.
Well, you can.
You can, but there's a whole other world out there that's amazing. And like, I would get to work and people would say, "Gosh, it sure is. Do you think it's going to rain today?" And I would say, "Is it? It already did. There was a lightning storm at 5:30 a.m. and I was in it." And they were like, "Really?" And I said, "Yes, there was lightning all over the place." And so like your life becomes so much more vivid and alive whenever you do this. And so, yeah, like helping people do triathlon, you're doing the same thing with helping people do triathlon and do it, with more ease and without all the frustration, because it can be really frustrating when you're cramping or you're dehydrated, you've done too much or not enough, or you don't know what's going on. So to have this out there is really great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't agree with you more about your commentary on getting out and experiencing life through triathlon or through trail running or through training. And I mean, the wildlife I've seen out on the trails and the stories and the people I've met too through the sport has been incredible.
Uh-huh.
Have generated really a worldwide group of friends that interact with at different levels. It's been really awesome as a lifestyle as well. So when they talk about triathlon being a lifestyle, it truly is, if you let it be.
Right. Yeah, my last trail run I did, I came across a giant rattlesnake, and I had my phone on me, so I took a video of it and posted it to Instagram. It was pretty crazy. I never would have seen it if I hadn't gone trail running.
Yeah.
So
try to avoid those ones.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. It was big. It took up the whole trail. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Hey, it's been a pleasure chatting, and thank you very much for your time and for going out of your way to reach out to me.
All right. Cool. All right. Thank you, Mr. Toker, for coming on the show. If you want to know the real details on hydration and electrolytes, pretty much can't beat having the owner of an electrolyte company and a former professional triathlete come on the show and talk about it. Again, I really learned something about that sloshing around in the stomach, and then also take more electrolytes, and that should help absorb it. And then also the fact that you can do electrolytes through your mouth. First, I got on my bike the other day and was needing a little bit more sodium electrolytes than I've been getting, and I tried the chewable thing, and yeah, you just chew them up and then hold it in your mouth, and after a while it just kind of dissolves. It's really cool, and all those things taste great. Yeah, so let's see, we need to wrap up the show. I got a couple things for you. One is, remember earlier I talked about that Kai and I like to jump out and scare Emily, and here is a little bit of audio that I happened to capture the other day. She was coming in from the driveway, and I hid behind the front door so that when she opened it, I'm behind it. And then Kai was in the pantry. So when I scared her, she kind of jogged and ran away towards the kitchen, and then he jumped out of the pantry and scared her again. Here you go. Ah!
Oh my god! Stop. Daddy. Ah!
Oh, it's too late.
All right, so that's a lot of fun for us, not for her. But Emily says that sometimes when she runs, she's looking over her shoulder to make sure I'm not jumping up from behind her. And that's, in a funny way, that's kind of what I want. I want her to be safe and be looking over her shoulder. Oh, and such a terrible way of implementing that behavior. Okay, then also I have a Nordic track from the 1980s. It's in mint condition. I'm trying to get rid of it. I'm trying to sell it. My parents want me to sell it. I would just give it away, but my parents want money for it. My dad doesn't use it anymore. He didn't use it much even when he had it. It's worth $200, and it's one of the 1980s, and they sell still to this day for like $400. It's a cross-country skier with the wooden planks that you stand on and move back and forth, and then pull this rope in front of you back and forth to simulate pulling. And I could convert it into some kind of swimming device, but that would tear it up. And hey man, the biggest reason that such awesome athletes do so well year round is they don't do it year round. They take a break in the winter and they do something like cross-country skiing instead, and that's what a Nordic track does. And it's no impact, so you get to recover from all your impact stuff, and but you're still working on aerobic, which is very much like running, which is cross-country skiing. All right, let's see, what else do we have? We have sponsors and then show donors. If you want to help support the show, you can do that by going to ZenTriathlon.com. That's where we post all the episodes, and on the left-hand side is PayPal donation links. You can do a one-time or a recurring donation, which is really cool. And that's all set up for you. It's super easy to do. And then on the right side is Hornet Juice, and then links to some sponsors. Let's see. I guess we'll go ahead and talk about SaltStick themselves. You know, they don't pay me to be on the show or anything. They just give me salt, which I could go get anywhere. I actually love it though, because it's their specific blend that again is formulated to be like what you sweat out, and I'm a big fan of that. And actually it's like super simple and inexpensive and all that. I just like making shows to help other people get out there and have fun and not have cramps and throw up and all kinds of stuff. So you can get SaltStick by going to saltstick.com/ZenTri, and then you get a discount. It'll ask you for what's the top secret password. The password is ZenTri. Again, it's just ZenTri. Isn't that cool? We are our own password. And let me see if I have how much the discount is. It's pretty good. And let's see. While I'm looking that up, oh wait, I have it right here in front of me. SaltStick. Let's see. 25% off. Holy cow! That's pretty good. And that's inside the United States. Outside the United States, it may not work, but there is a store locator where you can find SaltStick, and that is at shopsaltstick.com. It'll tell you where to go get some SaltStick around you. And let's see, we have Amrita bars. Amrita bars, I had one yesterday and one this morning. They're date-based bars, so you know, like Lara bars, but these are seed-based, and they also have, so if you have a nut allergy, they're great for you. They're a little bit more palatable and softer on your stomach, so they're really good for long base miles. They were invented by a cyclist. He's actually been on the show, and he's a big fan of ZenTri, and they're all vegan and all this other good stuff, gluten-free and all that. They taste great, and they're super easy to eat on the bike and make you feel good. You can get up in the morning and have an Amrita bar for breakfast, and then half an hour to an hour later, hit the road and start running, and your stomach will be fine. There's no problem whatsoever. There's a lady right here walking her dogs. It's pretty cute. Squirrel moment. Okay, and then let's see. We're going to talk about Hornet Juice in a second, I think. And so Amrita bars, SaltStick. Got a discount code for UCAN. If you want to get UCAN, you can get that 15% off with discount code ZenTri. That's a very, very slow carb if you want to do slow carb instead of low carb. And then, let's talk about Hornet Juice. Hornet Juice is an amino acid protein, same thing, that you can add to your fuel, and it turns on your fat burning. It's a special mix of amino acids that is based on the same amino acids that the Japanese killer hornet uses to metabolize fat to go the longest distances for ratio per body weight of any animal in the world, I believe. And scientists looked at it. How does it do it? What chemicals, what proteins does it use to metabolize that fat? And then they synthesize it in a lab. And it turns out it's a lot of aminos that you already eat, but it's in the right ratios. And it really works. It makes you feel like you're running on diesel, like a train. It's unbelievable. No high, no buzz or anything like that. But it's just really, really cool. And it is available on the right side of the webpage. You scroll down. Now we're having a little bit of a problem where Hornet Juice is saying temporarily they can't ship outside the United States. And also the largest order you can get is a 10-pack. I think they're moving warehouses. They're growing or something, and they're moving things around. And there's a limited amount right now. I think they have a shortage because so many people are buying it. So go to zentriathlon.com, click on the Hornet Juice link, get your 10-pack. If you're outside the United States, you can order it, but I'm gonna have to refund your money, which sucks. And I just found this out the other day. I owe people a bunch of refunds. I got to go in there and click refund, because people order it from me. Germany, South Africa, France, Japan, Australia. Australians are kinky with their endurance weirdness. And let's see, there's that. And I think that might be it. Is that all the sponsors that we got to mention? I kind of like this idea of putting the sponsors at the very end. Sponsors may not like that, but God, you want the commercials at the end, and then I make them fun, and then you pick them up if you want them. So then we have donations. If you want to help support the show, like I mentioned earlier, you can go to that PayPal link. And our latest donations are, let me pull up my list: John Mulan, Katie Jo Favia, Madsen Hans Henrik, Peter Sausen, Tanya Roy. I keep wanting to say Tanya. Matt Heinz. He messaged me the other day. What was it about? About running in the heat. Yes, dude, it sucked. It was so hot. Oh my gosh. Shiran Pasternak. I don't know how to say that. Sounds cool though. Allison Frutos, Tyler Moyer, Joseph Dieber, Dwayne Morin, and Houston Marsh. All right, as I was wrapping up the show, I forgot to mention something. I got the Garmin Fenix 5, which is basically, it's the Garmin 935 XT, or do they call it the Forerunner now? But anyway, it's the super duper triathlon watch, but it's got a beefier case on it. So it's got the silver crown and all the guts of the 935, but it's more professional and office-y looking. And I found myself in this gray area, this tough middle spot where I wanted all the features of my 920, which is a really good triathlon watch. It measures your swim strokes. It's just unbelievable. It's such a great watch. But mine's getting old. Mine's probably like 5-6 years old, and the battery life is starting to go. And there's more features now on the, I had the 920 and on the 935. But at the same time, I've been wanting to get a watch that's more like the Suunto's, where there's several Suunto models that have a steel crown, and they just look nice. They look, for a guy that works in an office with meetings and goes out to dinner with family and friends, it just looks really professional and nice. When the 935 still looks like you're wearing an athletic running watch when you're out doing fancier stuff. And the thing is, I like both. I want both in one. And like my favorite watch of all time is the Rolex Submariner, and the one that James Bond wore. And it's just a really classic, good-looking, simple watch. And just Casio makes a knockoff that is beautiful, and it's really cheap, and it's well built. It's fantastic. And so I would wear that sometimes, but then I would miss the features of the Garmin, and I hate switching back and forth. And then you find yourself you're someplace ready to start a workout, and then you left your workout watch somewhere else because you're wearing your dress watch. That's the word. And I know that I was sponsored by Sunto for a long time. I love Sunto stuff, and I've been trying to find a replacement for my 920 that is as much like the Sunto Ambit, the silver crown black bodies Sunto Ambit 3, I think is the model, as possible. And I've been looking around and finally discovered, it's been there, the Garmin Fenix 5. And Phoenix is spelled wrong, just to be different. Fenix. So I got one as a joint Father's Day / birthday present. Long story short, I've got one. I've started working out with it. Next few episodes, we'll be talking about it, all the features and stuff. And what's really cool is you don't really need the Fenix 5. It's the exact same watch as the Garmin 935, which is the triathlon watch that most people tend to use for triathlon. And I'm discovering all these cool features and things that it does, and I'm really excited about it. So on the next show, I will talk about that. Next shows, I'll be reviewing it. Gosh, for months, years, I'll probably be talking about it. This watch should last a long time. And then also, I wanted to mention that we are sponsored by Martin. That was a sponsor I forgot to name drop earlier. And it's a fuel that has an agent in it that turns it into gel when it hits the stomach acid in your stomach and allows you to get in more fuel or the same amount of fuel, but without getting sick because you digest it more easily, better. And oh my God, how bad the heat is. I can give you a specific example. If you want to know your sweat rate or if you're getting dehydrated, you weigh yourself before and after. Just keep on top of your weight before and after a workout. Just keep on top of your weight and see what's going on. In 3 days here in the heat of Texas, never doing a workout more than 2 hours. It was when I started doing a 3-hour workout that I got in trouble. I lost 10 pounds in 3 days in water weight. And we're going on and on about this electrolyte balance and all that stuff. And let me tell you what, so if you get a cramp in a specific muscle, like your quad while you're cycling, that is a lot of that's due to overuse. You're getting tired. You've been biking too hard for too long. Okay. But I've noticed that when I'm starting to get dehydrated, that I start getting electrical shock kind of feeling pulses, just like electrical discharges, just chunk, 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 like that, like something shorting out, like power lines shorting out in random spots on my body. And that is just in general, your electrolyte balance is low and things are starting to short out, or maybe your electrolytes are too high and you don't have enough water. I'm not specific on what that is, but basically you're dehydrated big time. And that's when I cut a workout short. I was going to go for a 1 hour run and then a 2-hour bike. And I got towards the end of the bike and I still had about 10 minutes left. And I go, this is nuts. I got to get off the bike and go weigh myself and see what's going on. And that's where I realized I was 10 pounds underweight from what I usually am. Now, what they say is when you're 5% dehydrated, that's when you're going to start having major performance issues. And that's exactly it. I weigh around 190 and I lost around 10 pounds. And that you're starting to get into, 5% would be of 100, 5 pounds, double it because I'm 200 pounds. You're starting to get into 10 pounds. When you start losing 10 pounds of water weight, and since I'm 190, it's more like 8 pounds, 9 pounds, then you are going to feel it. And that's exactly what happened. So, 1, SaltStick. 2, and drink more water and weigh yourself. But 2, big thumbs up to Martin because it was so hot and I was able to keep working out and nearly kill myself. Because of the Martin fuel. I had plenty of energy the entire time, but it just shows you how well that stuff works. So go check them out. MAURTEN. I owe them big time for sending me a lot of the Martin stuff to test out, and it continues to work. And this is the The most severe environment that you could possibly run into is here in Texas in the summer, because it's high heat and high humidity. It's really bad. And to be able to lose that much more, even though I was drinking tons, like I was not purposely like trying not to drink. I thought I was drinking plenty, and still we were having that problem. But check out the Martin. It is really, really cool stuff. It allows you to fuel and keep being energized even when your water situation is getting weird. Okay, that's it for this episode. Everybody stay tuned out there and stay safe out there. Work the uphills, cruise the downhills, and keep the rubber side down. And drink out. All right, thank you, Mr. Toker, for the interview. That was really cool. Before I keep talking on here, we are at the swimming pool. It's an indoor pool. Kai's about to jump in. We're going to go ahead and get him started, and then we'll keep yakking about stuff. So go ahead, Kai. What are you going to do? I told you what you're going to do. No, you're not going to just huck it. 300 yards, easy freestyle. Yeah, 200 IM. You can either do 2 100s IM or a 200 where it's 50 of each. What? Oh. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't see how
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Oh.